All right, good morning and welcome to the Wednesday morning edition of Sidelines, broadcasting live from SEC Media Days in Atlanta. That intro music, Frank and Jimmy, I got to tell you, I got to be honest with you, Audrey. It's so bad, it's good, and you only know when you hear music that bad, something so good like our show is about to come on the air. So Jimmy's unable to even listen. He called in 5 seconds before the show. He's like, I can't take it.
Hey, it goes from 1960s spaghetti western to 1980s Skinamax.
Yeah, to some dang disco bar in Berlin. Hello, I am Dieter. Now we must dance. Sprockets, yeah.
Sometimes you have to actually hear it to understand how bad it is. You can't describe it in words.
We're gonna consult with Nigel, our web operator, and find out. What I know. There's copyright laws. Hey, if it was up to me, we'd open up with the Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin every day or something great like that, just some real music. But hey, we're glad to be here with you. And I sounded like that beginning of the cheap version of the good, the bad, and the ugly when that guy, da-da-da-da, hey, it's like, guys. But anyway, a lot to talk about.
Unfortunately, where were the copyright laws on that?
Well, the judge here in municipal court just told a young man, he said, son, you have two choices. I'll give you $11.29 at the county farm doing hard labor, or you can listen to that podcast. I'll take the $11.29. But hey, man, we're going to be with you 8 to 10 a.m. Central, 9 to 11 a.m. east of the Chattahoochee and the Caney Fork. And man, Rob Brown, Jimmy Hodge, Frank Duffy, SEC Media Days, man. It is like taking a drink of water at Niagara Falls, man, trying to put it in a bottle. There's so much information going on, being, disseminated up here. And all these coaches, I've been in a lot of meetings. I really feel like I'm back in school, back in college, and a lot of note take. But I got to tell you, I come by it honestly. My dad, he's a narcoleptic, and I doze off a little here. I have not dozed off a single moment in these meetings. It's like you're on the edge of your seat, taking in everything that is said. And I got to tell you, the Southeastern Conference, I told Herb Vincent this and Mark Womack, they've been with the SEC office for a long time, how much we appreciate all their hard work, because you just can't even imagine. And it's hard to imagine until you're here and y'all see it. And I see it, but the logistical, it would be a nightmare if you didn't have great planners. But you're connecting the North Tower, the South Tower of the Omni Hotel in downtown Atlanta with the College Football Hall of Fame. It's all downtown right there together. And, of course, Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A and Chevrolet, the two greatest corporate partners college football's had in the last half century. And just the number of conversations we've had. Remember, follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. And remember, our sponsors, great folks like the May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa and Northport, Alabama. If you have a dog, a cat, a pet, take them to the May Veterinary Clinic. Always get them checked out. These are great people. Since 1964, Dr. Wayne May established the clinic, and they have done nothing since then but improve on delivering the best care for dogs and cats. In fact, the outlaw Josie Wales, that hound we found October 19th over at the Cherry Farm, who was mangy, and Dr. May put a miracle salve on her or something, and all of her hair grew back, and she is as good as ever and as strong as a mule, and loves to knock Audrey down on the leash. But she's at Camp May.
Hey, they can handle Smokey, Reveille, Tusk, Mike the Tiger. They can handle it all.
Yeah, Josie Wales. I mean, May Veterinary Clinic, I tell you what, they are fantastic. Check them out, mayveterinaryclinic.com, Tuscaloosa and Northport. And, of course, the great folks, Gateway Tire and Service Centers. We go the distance for our customers and the communities where we do business. Remember, support the Boy Scouts. I was a Boy Scout. My dad, Eagle Scout, brass. He was a silver palm. And I guess when it was time to go to college, you couldn't be a scout in college. That would be kind of wild. Being a pledge and a fraternity and all that wildness with being a scout might go against the scout oath. But I love the Boy Scouts. I did 4.5 years. We went camping probably 15 or 20 times a year, and we learned how to cook. No one will ever forget Gibby Gibson's famous hash browns. They were stuck to the to the skillet, and we were hungry, and we ate them along with the flies, but we were hungry. But also remember, go out, support the Boy Scouts. You'll learn how to make a young boy, turn him into a man. When you drop a kid off at Scout Camp Cherokee in Arkansas, or wherever you go, in 2 weeks they'll come back a little bit different. They'll learn how to fix their own food, and they'll learn how to go to the canteen on campus and eat a lot of sweet tarts like we did, get a sugar high. But also, reforest Mississippi. No matter where you live on your private land, your hunting land, your home, your residence, the median in the streets where you live, reforest Mississippi. And you know what? We're here to talk college sports. That's what we do. That's who we are. Again, if you don't hear us live, always remember 680thefan.com, the podcast park. And after this show over in Atlanta, check out the Southern Sports Today app. Put it on your phone. Dan Matthews, executive producer of the Southern Sports Today. Chuck Oliver, the king of college football, 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern. We're every day, 11 to 1 Eastern, Monday through Friday, Southern Sports Today. And Chuck and Chernoff in the afternoons from 3 to 6 on 680 The Fan. You know what? Chuck works, he told me last night, about 13 hours a day. And I tell you what, you want to know what's going on after this show, go right into it. It's incredible. So much going on, guys. I'm going to throw it to you. Jimmy and Frank, whoever wants to jump in first. Your takeaway yesterday, Nick Saban. I'm telling y'all, guys, it was like people, running to see Elvis go shopping. And, I looked out the window at the Omni Hotel, and there were adults, kids, children of all shapes and sizes, and people that hadn't been out of bed in 20 years, like Charlie's grandfather and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I shudder to think what those sheets were like 20 years of not being out of the bed, but I digress. But running down, that guy with the ring on his head, he was there. He has a pulse, guys. He's real. He's a nuclear physicist in his spare time. I don't know what he does, but a lot of people down there. You had Shane Beamer, I got to tell you, yesterday. Mike Leach, amazing. And it was really funny to hear Mike Leach. He got into talking about Netflix recommendations. And so he said, there's a movie out there about finding Pablo Escobar a submarine. And I said, what? But, you never know when you ask him a question what you're going to get. But I'll say this. We got some outstanding coaches here, and the representatives each of these schools have sent to speak to the media. These kids they're coached very well. But they're really good representatives for their schools, because we're in that big room in the College Hall of Fame here in Atlanta, where they have a football field set up. You can kick field goals and pass. Right now, it's been turned into a giant media room, and right behind us, Paul Feinbaum Show, SEC Network. These people work round. It's nonstop. But guys, SEC Media Days. This is call it the unofficial start of college football season. So much energy, so much information. Frank, I'll start with you. Atlanta and Birmingham. Those are two cities that are used to this stuff, SEC championships and all like that. What was your takeaway yesterday, starting with Nick Saban as he pursues his 20th national championship in 16 years?
Well, the parade continues. I mean, again, look, guys, it's still painful for us LSU fans to watch it. I gotta be honest with you. It's a pain to probably never go away. But I remember when he took the job in 2007, and his plane landed on the tarmac in Tuscaloosa, and there was that type of a crowd out there then. It hasn't stopped. And look, I'd be disingenuous if I didn't say I'm absolutely jealous over what I think would have been all of LSU's success. So let me tell you, had he stayed at Baton Rouge, there would have been that many insane, crazy LSU fans in the hallways and in the corridors. So as much as it's funny to lampoon, I'd be honest with you, I'd be disingenuous if I doing the exact same thing.
Well, yeah. And you know what? Think about this. I wasn't there, but I know people who lived in New York when the Beatles came to the airport in 1964 and played at Shea Stadium, home of the New York Mets. Look, think about it. I lived, living in Memphis growing up. I was 14 when Elvis supposedly died. I'm not sure if he ever did, but he died, and you've never seen anything like what the crowds were. And you still go to Graceland for the vigil, and they go out there. There are thousands of people, and you can walk up and down. They're speaking 50 different languages. Well, Nick Saban's effect. And wait till Kirby Smart. Look, Kirby Smart's going to be there today. Listen, there are going to be some folks out there today that are going to be like, "Hey man, give me an autograph." I mean,
there'll be some woofing going on. That's right. There'll be some woofing going on, especially with it now being in Atlanta. But greatness has a presence to it, Rob and Jimmy, as y'all know. And when you're in that area of that presence, of that greatness, you can't help but sit there and pay homage to it. And that's what Nick Saban is. I mean, he's the greatest coach. I'll tell you, I think he's the greatest coach of all time, whether it's college, whether it's football. I think he's the greatest coach that's ever walked the sideline or the side of a court or in a dugout. And that's what you have. And he's a living legend. And Alabama fans who, are frothy to begin with. You have this, iconic, multiple national champion, winner coming on the heels of also another iconic coach, Bear Bryant, and you're going to get this type of reaction. And look, like I said, if he was still in purple and gold, I'd be doing the exact same thing.
Well, you know what? It's normal, but everybody loves a winner. Everybody wants to be around it. And you talked about a lot of positive karma at the SEC. And I told this to Kimberly Bowden, who's the CEO of the College Football Hall of Fame. She'll be on with us at the top of the second hour. And I said, there's so much positive energy in here, positive karma. Our good friend Gary Stoken, who we've had on the show a number of times, the CEO of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and also the Chick-fil-A Classic. They bring these big time college matchups here to Atlanta. And you live in Atlanta. I'm in Memphis. Jimmy's in Lake Zurich. But we're all in Atlanta quite a bit. And I told Kimberly Bowden when I met her yesterday, I said, the heck with Disney World, man. The College Football Hall of Fame needs to be that first place that you take the big trip with the kids. Maybe you take it on the way to Disney World. But everybody, at some point in their life before you die, you're going to go through the Atlanta airport. So why not go to the College Football Hall of Fame? Because, Jimmy.
Brian Kelly's only the second biggest thing to leave South Bend. The biggest thing to leave South Bend was the College Football Hall of Fame. And moving it to Atlanta was a stroke of genius. It is where it belongs. It is where college football is revered in the heart of the South. And it is an everyday attraction. Yeah. There are people constantly going through there. So it's not just SEC Media Days or the Chick-fil-A Kickoff Classic or the Chick-fil-A Bowl. It's every day people are down there. In fact, I enjoy going down there. I've been down there probably 6 or 7 times because even if you're going on a Tuesday, you're going to see something that you hadn't seen before if you stop at a particular exhibit, and they're constantly swapping exhibits out. So we were blessed to be a sponsor for the Touchdown Club of Atlanta for several years when the hall first opened. And I think it's a perfect marriage. The Hall of Fame itself, the attraction, the exhibits, the city of Atlanta, and college football.
No doubt about it. And Jimmy, what Frank is right. It constantly changes. Right now they have an SEC history, a temporary exhibit during the SEC Media Days, and it is really neat. There's so much updated stuff. That's what makes it great. A museum can either be a bunch of old press clippings that turn yellower and yellower every year with age, and then they just rot or they get a fungus on them and you can't. But this is all interactive. You go in there, and whatever school you're a fan of, it's all tailor made to you. They can make group visits, team visits, whatever. But there's no limit to what you can do with it. But Jimmy, so far SEC Media Days, most coaches are similar. They don't want to say anything to give their opponents anything to get fired up about. But what's been your takeaway after the first 2 days. And again, we have day 3 starting today and day 4 tomorrow. And then it's, hey, August 1st will be here before we know it. And practice and pads and contact will be the name of the game.
Well, I think every coach kind of came into media days with a game plan of how they wanted to make their presentations and provide updates for what's going on with their program right now, and give their fans just a little bit of information on what to look for as they're entering a preseason camp. But the one thing that really stuck in my mind is that the 2 Mississippi coaches have already broken down barriers at SEC media days. The first one, Lane Kiffin, not wearing a tie and suggesting that, like I said, Commissioner Sankey, that could be a signal for him. Hey, if you want to loosen up in a future SEC media day presentations, feel free to do so because I've broken the glass chandelier here. And then Mike Leach yesterday, no opening statement. That was awesome.
It was
man.
classic, Jimmy.
I mean, that was just so
You know where it
Mike
was
Leach.
going to go.
Yeah, it's just awesome. I mean, it is so Mike Leach. Not to name drop or anything, but I was at one of the American Football Coaches Association conventions. They have it, of course, right after the regular season, and it always starts on Sunday, the day before the national championship game. So all the coaches are there from everywhere, except obviously the national championship coaching staffs. And I had a chance to talk to him for quite a while. It was after his first year at Kentucky with Hal Mummy. And I mean, there's just nothing like it. I've never seen anybody that's more comfortable with who they are, and it's just, everything just flows. And, he can talk to anybody. And so that's just always a unique experience. And, of course, he made it so again yesterday. But when Nick Saban came in, I mean, it's just like E.F. Hutton, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody just sits on every word that he says. But what stuck out in my mind, I don't know what you guys think, but I was just reading between the lines. And just the way he talked, he knows he's got a good team.
Oh, yeah.
He knows
Oh, yeah.
that he's got an exceptional team. And just the way he was talking, and again, he just had this really, confident tone. But he does a great job at addressing the media. I know he doesn't like to do it, but once he realizes he's in that setting, he's really good at it.
Yeah,
he's the best.
And I just thought, reading between the lines, he's saying that barring injury, I tell you what, we're going to go out there and open a can on a lot of teams.
I know he did, man. I thought the same thing, Jimmy.
And as long as we come close to being able to have all of our key players available for every game, I don't think anybody's going to beat us. But of course, now you can't control the injury situation, and last year was the classic example. But that just stood out to me. That man, he knows they're going to be good. And then, Clark Lee, I mean, he's just the perfect coach for Vandy. He's a quality coach. He represents the university and just a first-class manner. You cannot forget the job he did as defensive coordinator at Notre Dame that earned him this opportunity. And, of course, his background as a player at Vandy and all of that. But, he's got a plan, and he knows what he faces. But at the same time, don't overlook the fact that, Vandy's got some alumni with some money and so forth. And don't be surprised if they're lurking in the weeds, with some plans here for NIL, because there were some games last year they could have easily won. They had no business losing that South Carolina game in Columbia last year when they gave up that game-winning drive.
Pressure. And Jimmy, like you said in the past, the pressure for teams like programs like Vanderbilt to up their game with all this realignment going on. I mean, you're absolutely going to have them have to, improve their facilities and, bring out some of this NIL money and support their program in a much bigger way. I mean, I don't think Vanderbilt's going anywhere like we've talked about before, but just the mere thought and the pressure that has to make them up their game.
Yeah, and beware of Mike Leach when he's got a quarterback going into his third year as a starter. And that scheme, and he's got a quarterback that gets more and more comfortable. Now, Rodgers did not start until about the 8th or 9th game of his freshman year, but still, though, he played enough that season to really be able to understand that, hey, I can play in this league, and if I just keep trying to learn this offense and refine it every day that I'm on the field, I can turn into a really good player. And he's already a really good player. And I think he's the most overlooked quarterback in this league right now. And, they're going to be able to get skill position players that want to play in that offense. So watch out for them. And then, Shane Beamer, I mean, he just did the classic, really up and down the roster summary of his team and just letting outsiders know, hey, this is kind of what we have. This is what our goal is. We're really happy with what we accomplished last season because at this time last year, nobody even mentioned us, and now you got teams talking about them. So he really gave a positive outlook on where South Carolina is, and that if you go out there and you're playing against them on a particular Saturday, you better be ready to play. So, and then a lot of talk about Spencer Rattler. There are varying opinions about him, what he's going to do, but the only thing that's left is to wait and see until they kick it off on September 3rd and see what we have, because again, you just don't know until you go out there and tee it up, because again, he's in a different scheme, he's in a different conference, the quality of opponents up and down the line is going to be much better. So we're just going to wait and see with what happens with him. But it was a very interesting, unpredictable day yesterday.
Well, I'll say this: the Miss Rubin's rub. Miss Rubin's rub, white magic, black magic, Creole magic, and seafood magic. The Miss Rubin's rub on what I learned yesterday, the takeaway was the tight end is becoming the new wide receiver, especially in programs where they don't have much depth, much talent at the wide receiver position. So Frank Beamer's son, Shane, is a lot like his dad in so many ways. And he was asked, and the question I was going to ask him, and we didn't get it in because they limited the number of questions. And that is this. I think it was January of 1987. I was up in Roanoke, Virginia. I was interning in Washington, D.C. one quarter when I was at Auburn, getting quite a dose of reality of how America works. And that's when they introduced Frank Beamer as the coach. My brother-in-law, Rick, from Rich Creek, Virginia, played college football and finished up in 77 for Virginia Tech. I was a tight end. I said at that time, Frank Beamer has a vision. He sounds just like, the coaches down in the South, Pat Dye, Sugar Jordan, Bear Bryant, Steve Spurrier. You think about Nick Saban. He had a vision. He talked about how it was going to be, executed, the plan. And he said, there are a lot of people in Virginia. There are a lot of people in our bordering states, a lot of really good football players. We're going after every damn one of them. And we're going to build a national power here in Blacksburg. I'm going to tell you right now, if Shane Beamer came to your house, it's game on. That guy can recruit his ass off. He knows football. He's grown up, like the Bowden family, okay? Like Lane Kiffin growing up with a dad like Monty Kiffin. It's in his DNA, okay? This is just how this stuff works in football. But he's got a high football IQ. He gets it. He said he's been to Gamecock Club events all over South Carolina and the South all spring and all summer, and every one of them has been sold out, standing room only. He goes, I've never seen a fan base like this that where I've coached. And he's coached at Oklahoma. He's coached at some big time programs. He said these people sense something great is going to happen. I'm not saying we're going to win it all this year, but they feel it, and we damn sure do feel that we're building toward being a top program. There are a lot of football players in North Carolina and Georgia and Florida. Look where they are. Look where Columbia is. Hello, Dave Baker. My friend Dave, his daughter Caroline's going to school at South Carolina, one of my great friends in my hunting club, Gracio Group. They're in Columbia right now. They're in Charleston. By the way, Frank and Jimmy, he was saying, what's a good place to go eat? And my son, who goes to Charleston a good bit, sent him about 10 places. Jordan sent him a place. I don't know. There's so many good places there. It's like New Orleans, Frank, on the Atlantic Ocean. Now, that's the ocean, not the Gulf. But, man, you know what? South Carolina, that's a hell of a school. Now you might have the right guy. It feels like a perfect fit. No, and the only thing about Clark Lee I didn't like, that opening speech was like somebody from, the accounting firm there before they began the audit. I want to go over. I mean, it was like
Waterhouse.
Yeah, God. I mean, it's like, hey, man, and he's very. I mean, but man, this guy's a planner, Jimmy. You're right. He's a perfect coach. He went to MBA or Brentwood. He's from Metro Nashville, but this is the secret no one really talks about. Barton Simmons. Everybody knows him, what he's done in recruiting. He was hired last year to help evaluate talent and find these off the radar prospects around the country for Vanderbilt. So he's trying to do things differently. The only thing about NIL and Vanderbilt is NIL can't cover up for academic deficiencies of a player because it takes a really good GPA and everything else to get into Vanderbilt. I'm curious how that'll work because Vanderbilt money, hell, when I got in the bond business 31 years ago, their endowment then was $3.2 billion. I can't even imagine what it is now.
Private university.
Yeah, it's a private university.
Private university is a whole different animal.
You know what Foghorn Leghorn would say in his little sidekick if someone said they wanted to know how much Vanderbilt had? Back off, boys. It's none of your business. What is it, Frank? Say it again.
Back off, boy. You're bothering me.
All right.
Well, hey, look. Vanderbilt's always going to be Vanderbilt. They're going to have their challenges with academics and with, again, being a private institution. You never really can see behind the curtain, really, at Vanderbilt. They don't have to disclose like most of the other schools have to do. I think the interesting one is South Carolina, like you're talking about. I mean, but Shane Beamer, I think he is building a really good program there. And, when things are going well, look back at the Holtz turnaround in South Carolina. Look when Steve Spurrier had them, playing well, going to bowl games. That fan base in Columbia, they have some rabid fans, and that program, when it gets going, those cockabooses get rocking.
Oh, yeah.
I'm interested to see what inroads they can make in the East. That the huge game, of course, always against Georgia. There's something about South Carolina when they play Georgia. They always give Georgia their best.
Yeah.
I'm going to be interested to see the improvement that Beamer has from year 1 to 2. As they say, the second year always in a program and in a team and administration is always the most improvement. You can really see where it comes from once they get their system in place and their people in place. So I'm fascinated to see how he uses Spencer Rattler. I mean, my God, that kid must have a chip on his shoulder the size of an entire palmetto tree. We're going to see what he brings to the table after coming from Oklahoma. He's got a lot to prove. Beamer has a lot to prove. That program has a lot to prove. I mean, for such support, the success that it's had has been, here and there, brief times through the last, say, 30 years. They have to build that and sustain that. And I think Beamer's the guy that could do it.
There's no doubt he is. That we're about to take a break, but I want to say something else too. Dr. Waller May and his staff, he listens to Sidelines every day. That's pretty cool. Just sent a text, about the outlaw Josie Wales is having fun at Camp May. She and her roommate have been fighting. They've been staying up late at night, and the bed check, they failed miserably every night. But I'll tell you something. People travel all over the country, all over the world to go to places like the Mayo Clinic and the Houston Clinic, or Andrews Orthopedic, or Johns Hopkins, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. You know what? No matter where you live, especially if you're in the Southeast, our primary footprint, it's an easy trip to Tuscaloosa. You want to get top-notch veterinary care? Find your way to Tuscaloosa and Northport. Since 1964, May Veterinary Clinic, 2 locations. Dr. Wayne May started it all, and he's got 5 great boys. I'll go down the depth chart. Al, Kelly, Waller, Guy, Joe. And Waller and Guy are both veterinarians. They run the practice with their partners, but they are great people. They absolutely love these dogs. Sometimes, like Sunday, we were there in Tuscaloosa. One of the dogs that they found, in the parking lot nearby, they're taking care of this dog right now. I'm going to find it an owner. And one of Waller's sons brought the dog home for a visit. That was this really cool dog. If you're not careful, you might have 20 dogs. But all dogs eventually will die and go to heaven, and cats as well. But between now and then, they should all get checked out at the May Veterinary Clinic. Let's take a quick break. We're going to be right back. Great conversation with Jimmy Hodge, Frank Duffy, Foghorn Leghorn, and his sidekick. Back off, boys. You're bothering me. I will be right back talking some college football after this break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4 City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you for the second segment. Happy birthday, Boyd. I tell you what, it's my best friend, 2 days apart. Went to Alabama, but he's still a good person. And happy birthday, Boyd. And college football, it's on our minds right now. And I tell you what you need. I don't know about you, Frank or Jimmy. You need to have some lozenges handy, especially with all the talking that we're doing. Lozenges to keep you. I remember Letterman used to always go, Paul, how about a lozenge? And Paul Schaefer would always make sure he had some lozenges there. But I like what both of y'all are saying about Mike Leach. You know what? There's enough pressure on these coaches. You got to laugh and have fun, and you got to make fun of yourself. I still think Lane Kiffin is got that deadpan personality. When he was up at the podium Monday, he's just funny. I mean, the no tie rule, and he said, well, I was not going to wear one. And of course, Kirk Bowles, I like the no tie rule because, again, nobody that comes up here to cover the SEC Media Days from the state of Texas, they don't no ties. There are no ties.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm sure Lane was thinking, what are you going to?
Yeah, what are you going to do with it?
How do you do that?
Yeah. But and Jimmy and Frank met a really cool guy yesterday, Anwar Richardson, orangebloods.com. And we got to talking. Guy's from Lakeland, Florida, and he's been out there for a long time in Texas, but he is every day covering the Longhorns. And that's I believe the oldest site that covers Texas Longhorns. And, Kirk Bowles is a great columnist, great writer. Get him on when you can. But looking for somebody more consistent that can cover the Texas Longhorns for us. And I tell you right now, guys, y'all hear Olin Buchanan on the show every week. He is a trip. He and Kirk, They look like courtroom reporters in the trial of the century. They don't, and then they can be typing away, and all of a sudden, Kirk Bowles will ask a question. Now, Olin has been kind of quiet on the questions so far, but usually you'll see SEC Media Days. Let's go over here on the second row. Olin Buchanan, TexAgs.com. He'll go, Coach Saban, are you and Jimbo going to the beach together this summer? But it is a lot of fun when you see these personalities of these coaches. And Jimmy, if you're too uptight, you're not going to succeed. And you're right, Clark Lee, he's got a lot of work to do, but he made a comment last year, and I want you to carry beyond what I'm going to say. And that was, we don't want these kids to choose Vanderbilt just for academics. We want them to choose Vanderbilt because they want to come here and be a great football player and win the championship. Okay. How do you successfully manage that? Because Vanderbilt's academic standards are tough. I've got family members graduated from there, got a great law school, hell of a school. I know that, but there are a lot of choices out there. The schools in the South in the last 20 years are as good as any schools in the country. There's more money down here. There's a lot of things going for it. How do you fix Vanderbilt? Just give us the Cliff Note version.
Well, one thing that people don't realize is that for pretty much the better part of the last 50 years is that there is a loophole. Once you're able to get into Vandy, a lot of their players are students at Peabody next door, which is the teachers' university.
Oh yeah.
And so they are in coordination with Vandy. Those credit hours work together and all of that. And again, that's always been kind of a hidden gem that those coaches can use.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Oh
yeah. And also, Vandy may have the youngest coaching staff in college football. I don't think any of their assistant coaches are past their early 40s, but you combine with that, they have a lot of experience at the highest level of the sport.
Yeah.
The vast majority of those assistant coaches, even though they're young, they have a really solid experience in the NFL. So they've been coaching the best players in the world, and they can teach the latest techniques to high school recruits if they choose to come to Vandy. And Frank knows as well as anybody, you'd be surprised the number of former Vanderbilt players that have been playing in recent Super Bowls, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Sure.
And so with a young coaching staff like that, they're going to be great at recruiting because they're not that far apart in age from a lot of these recruits. But at the same time, they're pretty much the exact age of a lot of parents. And or at least, within a few years. So there can be a connection there. And they themselves probably have kids that aren't far away from being recruited, so they know what it's like to raise kids, and they have an idea what those parents are going through. But just from an X's and O's standpoint, I mean, this is a really solid coaching staff, and I don't know if a lot of people were aware of it, but Clark really started from scratch last year. They opened against Middle Tennessee, and I mean they really had no chance to win the game. I mean, they were just had no answers offensively and so forth. But by the end of the year, the improvement was significant. Like I said, they had no business losing to South Carolina and Columbia. And we had Jimmy Himes on last year after the Vandy game as he was assessing, the Vols' progress from week to week. And he himself was impressed with how much Vandy had improved over the season, because in the past, he said Tennessee would have just lined up and just steamrolled them, from the opening kickoff. And, he was impressed with how much better Vandy was as the season went on. And I look for that type of improvement to continue. And I really believe they're going to be getting better players because there are a lot of kids out there that want to get a great education, that are really good athletes, but they also want to play in the SEC because they have dreams of playing in the NFL, and they know they have a great chance to do it because by playing in the SEC every week, they have a conference game. They're going to be tested to their limit, and they're going to find out how they measure up against future NFL players. And if they have success against those teams, they're going to be really confident as their career develops. And that, once you get confidence, I mean, there's no limit what you can do if you have the actual skills and the athletic ability to get it done.
Well, and to complement what you're saying, when Tim Corbin came to Vanderbilt, and he's been up there a long time, since the early to mid 2000s, his plan was to go out and recruit within the 250-mile radius of Nashville in baseball. He said there's so many baseball players in that geographical footprint that we can win national championships. And he did. And now there's been a major shift in where the most talent is. One time it was East Tennessee, Chattanooga, Knoxville. Now it's Middle Tennessee. That really Nashville, Davidson, Williamson County. You go down to, Murfreesboro, Riverdale, Oakland. There's so many. Brentwood Academy, Father Ryan, MBA, Franklin Road Academy, Ravenwood, Hunter's Lane. There's so many schools. Get up there into Clarksville. It's just one contiguous, blur of lights at night from Clarksville down to Murfreesboro. So there's players there, but as Maury Gaston, said just now, Jimmy's right. The myth of the academic bar at Vanderbilt being insurmountable is a myth. And I've always said that, look, they have high academic standards. A lot of smart people go there, but they don't use Peabody like they should. And it's almost like someone doesn't want to be told, you just go to Peabody. You don't really go to Vanderbilt. They've always done that. Anybody that knows anything about Vanderbilt knows that Peabody's been their ticket. But what they've got to do is commit, and their fans have got to get as mad about losing a business deal. Same thing about with a football game. You can't.
They got to move. They got to move their own bar, Rob. They've set their own bar too low.
They've set the bar too low, and if you keep lowering the bar on the hurdles, and the kids are out there jumping over a low bar and they think they're good, then they get to the state track meet and the bars are at the standard for championships. They can't compete. That Vanderbilt has been held back by themselves, and Clark Lee hopefully is thinking outside the box. Vanderbilt's got to get out of their comfort zone. They've got to be comfortable in being competitive. They did it historically until Bryce Drew took over the basketball program. They were competitive. Now it looks like Jerry Stackhouse is bringing them back slowly but surely. Then in baseball, good gosh, Vanderbilt is a great program, and they were very close to getting to the Super Regional. They lost at Oregon State, but just some programs, after a while, it's not that they're not getting good. They've got good players, but not a ton of them. But you got to decide as an administration, you have to have your board of trustees, your regents, your president, your provost, everybody on the same page, Frank. And you know that. Look, Frank, when you look at a program like, like Mississippi State, we know what Jackie Sherrill did there. And look what Mike Leach did. He averaged almost 8 wins in his 9 years there. Dan Mullen. Was the perfect fit at Mississippi State. But he wanted to go to Florida. He'd had success there as an assistant. What do you think if it doesn't work out for Mike Leach, does Mississippi State? Would you go back to Dan Mullen and say, hey, man, come on back. We'll get you a job at Dooley's Barbecue and while you're coaching.
I never thought.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Leach is having enough success now. What didn't help Mike Leach in Mississippi State was the year that Ole Miss had.
Yeah,
having Lane Kiffin win 10 games, that didn't help, right? But I think Leach has done well there. That in his last 2 years in Mississippi State. I know one thing: beat the hell out of us that first game after the championship.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out how they put 700 yards on us. So, they've got potential, but you're right. If Leach does falter, that would be an interesting decision of whether to bring Mullen back home.
He just was the perfect fit at Mississippi State. Jackie Sherrill, he went heavy in junior college players, but he showed what you can do at a place like Starkville. And let me tell you something.
Yeah.
They got a lot of money. They got a great engineering school, business school, honors college. Look, they're pulling so many Memphis kids down to Starkville now. That didn't used to be that way.
Oh, yeah.
They're just all these schools in the South, Jimmy and Frank, have a lot of money. And then being members of the SEC, you're getting more and more and more. And that's something that I'm noticing from the Texas people that are here. I haven't met anybody covering from Oklahoma. I hope Oklahoma, I meet some writers there. I'm surprised, but there are a lot. And I'm going to tell you, two groups of media people that have been here all week, just tons of them are people that cover Auburn and LSU. Man, we met Jacques Doucette from TV sports
Baton
anchor
Rouge,
in Baton Rouge. We're going to get him on the show. But, man, Jacob Hester, and you go into the bars and restaurants there in the Omni, guys, and it's just, last night I was in there. Chuck Oliver and I were out from Southern Sports Network, Southern Sports Today, having a great time last night after his show. And we were in there and turn around. He goes, there's Paul Feinbaum, there's Chris Doring, there's Tim Tebow. It's just, but and they want to have their downtime and all like that. And and they're when you come in here and if you want to see why the SEC is what it is, and you've just got like our friend Lauren Sisler from AL.com and ESPN, the working media room is, and I also found two young ladies. They're both like in their mid-20s doing a sports show out of Nashville, 102.5. They really know that. I was listening to them. I said, man, I want to get y'all on the show because I want to start, having a, women's college forum with some friends of ours, like Jessica, Rich's daughter. She knows football, and Mallory. But, half the people at the football games are women, and they know their football. And I know Audrey knows her football by default. It's just like
my good friend Sandra Goldman from all those years at 680 The Fan and 790 The Zone before that. She's a great knowledge on football. In fact, I was the sponsor. Duffy Realty was the sponsor of her two-a-days segment every morning. So there are a lot of knowledgeable women in this area. I mean, look, let's face it. Our women down here love their football.
Yeah.
They love being in those stadiums. The men do.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, it's really, it's insulting to say, you're the first woman to do this. I don't care if you're a woman or a man. If you're the best qualified on the sports thing, go for it, man. And that's why I'm looking forward to talking with Kimberly Bowden. And I met her Monday night briefly, and then met her yesterday and talked to her. And just, she's the CEO of the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. But just send me the best people. But again, I guarantee there are a lot of women that go, look, I'll go to every LSU game or every Alabama game, but I want 2 weeks in the Caymans in January. Well, no, can't do that. That's during duck season. All right, what about February? Well, that's quail season. I mean, what about March?
Hey, be quiet, Rob. Don't tell Rhonda that. I get her in that RV. We go to almost every game. Don't tell her I got to trade something out.
Hey, you know what, Jimmy? Frank is going to pick you up. You're going to have to come to Knoxville. I'll be in Memphis. When you go out to Fayetteville to play Arkansas, pick us up in Bingle 1, and we're going to put that thing on cruise at about 95 with a cooler full of ice cold hams, beer, and 2 sackfuls of crystals, and we're going to have a road trip.
We got to swing through, get Doug Dean over at Lake Martin, and do that LSU Auburn game this year on the plane.
Absolutely, that'll be a big one. And we're going to be joined in just a few minutes by Maury Gaston talking about American Cast Iron Pipe Company and Spiral Weld, one of our sponsors this week, making SEC Media Days possible. And you can't do it without your sponsors and your listeners, and we're so blessed to have them. And I'm going to tell you what. You got questions, always text us 901-413-2708 or 901-606-1929. There's topics, that you're doing. But this week it's really fluid, and I'm trying not to schedule a lot of – most of our people are here that we have on regularly are in SEC Media Days. There's so much coverage. And I'm going to tell you what, Another good observation by one of our listeners, Felix Grundy. Didn't he read law to James K. Polk? Felix Grundy. That name sounds familiar. Felix Grundy said Mississippi State is Auburn 20 years ago. Very bright future, great place to live as well. The Cotton District, downtown Starkville, it is really cool. All these college towns in the South, guys, they're incredible. I mean, not every college town, they're not like these towns in the SEC, but there's so much pride in all these college towns. I was in Tuscaloosa, Saturday night, got there. We had to leave Memphis earlier. I was supposed to be there Saturday night for a wedding. Did not get to go. We had to leave early. We had something we had to do before media days. Got down there, and we rode around Tuscaloosa on the campus Sunday, down University Boulevard, going up to Bryant Denny Stadium. Man, the physical plants, the facilities, amazing at Alabama. I mean, you go to these college towns, Auburn, Athens, the classic
Fayetteville.
city. Yeah,
Fayetteville's beautiful.
Listen, if you haven't been to Fayetteville, it's kind of like saying you've really never been to the grocery store. It'll blow your mind. It is so gorgeous.
Beautiful.
That the Strawberry, the Mulberry River, Van Buren County, they've got wild elk up there, outdoors, hunting, fishing. It's gorgeous. And then you ride around, all the towns up there, Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, just as they say, smoked glass, high rises, miles and miles and miles. It's the Walmart, J.B. Hunt, Tyson effect. But the one thing our good friend Franz Beard pointed out from GatorBaitMedia.com, what Frank Broyles, they called him Big Daddy. What Big Daddy did, Lynch, you also are Big Daddy, but they got all the families in Arkansas, the Stevens family, you name, the Reynolds family, the bauxite people, the aluminum, Reynolds Razorback Stadium. They got them all rowing in the same direction. I wish I could say that for a lot of other schools in the SEC, where everybody's trying to outdo each other, board of trustees and all these different people. They have their own agendas. They kind of like those Zodiac boats. If you ever watch those documentaries on SEAL training at Coronado Beach, California, you got 6 people in a coxswain on the front of the boat. They're trying to get over those waves. The guys on the left side are paddling left, backwards, right. The guys on the right are all got their oars, doing a draw stroke. And the guy up front's going, "What are you doing?" And they get swamped, and their paddles and the boat and all the members are strewn up and down the beach for several hundred yards. And they have to do it over and over and over. If they would just be like, look what Nick Saban did, Jimmy. He came to Alabama. He's like, all right. It's kind of like, remember the movie, the original movie, not the remake with Adam Sandler. I'm talking about the original one with our man, Burt Reynolds.
Long's yard.
Putting that football team together, and they were talking about putting a team together. Remember they brought in Shatner, that bald guy. He was in shackles, leg irons, and hands. And they brought him in. Yeah, and he goes, yeah, see if you can get him to play. He goes, well, he's in here for murder. He goes, what'd he do? He goes, well, he killed 6 people at a family reunion. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, he's killed another 5 since he's been in here. He goes, we really need this guy. He goes, hey, you want to play for the football team? He goes, nah. He goes, you get to hit the guards. He goes, okay.
Remember Big Jaws? Big Jaws was in that too?
Oh, my God. That would have been Jimmy Hodge. You get to hit the guards. Jimmy would have been like, hit the guards, huh? Yeah, I'll play. Jimmy, would you have been Shatner?
Joe Cap was one of the guards, the quarterback for the Vikings.
Yeah, and Chuck Oliver told me last night, Captain Knauer, he was an NFL player. Those were some bruisers. That was a great movie. That's one of the greatest movies of all time. And it wasn't Annette Funicello. It was who was that girl that was the secretary that Burt Reynolds took a powerful hankering to?
Bernadette
Peters, yeah. He had a powerful hankering for her, man. Anyway, Jimmy, jump back in and save us from ourselves. Somebody, please help me, please.
Well, it was just, like I said, one of those movies where it doesn't matter what your social status is or your intellectual level lies. It was just one of those bare bones, and of course, it's a football movie in addition to career criminals that just got a respite by being able to play a football game.
Yeah.
And then it got down to football.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I guess the best ones when they let whoever it was intentionally come in on the blitz, when Bert threw the football that broke his nose, and it just starts. He broke his effing nose.
That was the Nipsey.
Yeah,
the Nipsey character.
Yeah, and then it goes other people, and then finally, who was it? Was it who was the announcer doing the game? Was it wasn't Musburger, but it was somebody like that, Charlie Jones or somebody. But anyway, and the PA announcer, just repeated the same observation.
And the cheerleaders were going to town.
Mean Machine.
Yeah.
Mean Machine.
Yeah. Oh,
mean
and then when they did the chant of Mean Machine,
That was awesome.
Then the warden, was starting to panic.
He was panicking,
threatening
Eddie Albert.
Hey, Jimmy and Frank, let's do this. We're going to take a quick break. We got to be on schedule. We're going to come right back. We're going to continue this in hour number 2. The Longest Yard. God, what a great movie. The original one, the remake wasn't bad, but you cannot beat the original one. Whatever that guy, the 8-foot tall guy that was the giant, he rode around in that Burt Reynolds movie, Gator, and he was so big that his head came out of the sunroof in that Lincoln Mark IV. That was a classic. But we'll be right back, hour number 2, and we'll be joined quickly by Maury Gaston of American Cast Iron Pipe Company and Kimberly Bowden, the CEO of the College Football Hall of Fame. Be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
Okay, Rob Brown back here with you. And before we go to Kimberly Bowden, the CEO of the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, want to say, Maury, we're really glad to have American Ductile Iron Pipe and Spiral Weld as a sponsor. Love this. We wouldn't be here in Atlanta this week without our great sponsors like your company.
Thanks, Rob. You and Jimmy and your listeners and viewers know I'm happy to be here with you.
Maury, what's something the public may not know about iron and steel pipe? Because we got to have it.
That's a great question, Rob. We touched on it a little bit yesterday, but there's another dimension to this as well. Iron and steel pipe are both made from virtually 100% recycled iron and steel pipe, iron and steel scrap. We tear down buildings and melt the steel into new products, including pipe. We recycled appliances. They're called white goods. It's all made from recycled iron and steel. And on the other hand, alternative pipe materials such as PVC plastic are made from petroleum-based raw materials, and that raw material process releases toxic dioxins into the atmosphere and the ground. Iron and steel pipe are the most sustainable and environmentally friendly pipe materials on the market today, and they've been here more than a century. Other materials such as lead pipe and asbestos cement pipe, that's right, asbestos, have come with great promise and gone with a great wake of despair. But iron and steel pipe continue to serve faithfully decade after decade.
All right, so Maury, all the other materials have come and gone like fads, but the iron pipe is still standing tall. I remember the old commercial, like the Timex watch, the Energizer bunny, huh? Any operational differences between pipe materials you could tell us about?
Well, that's another great question. We lead the other materials in our manufacture and also in our operations. Another thing most folks don't know is that it takes less energy to pump the same volume of water through iron pipe than it does through PVC plastic pipe. And that adds to the life cycle savings of iron pipe and steel pipe year after year. Iron and steel pipe, Rob, are like the highest rated bonds in your business. They hold their value and pay dividends year after year. Thurston Howell III would love it.
I love it. Where can people and our viewers, our listeners, find out more about your company and how they could get in touch with you?
Sure, Rob. We've got a wonderful website, American-USA.com. And if you'll go to our news page on that website and search under Life Cycle, you'll find several stories and articles of further explanation there.
Well,
also, you can follow us on Twitter at News@American. That's AT American. And we're on LinkedIn, of course, American Cast Iron Pipe Company. And I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter as Mari D. Gaston.
Well, listen, man, thank you so much for your sponsorship of Sidelines and SEC Media Week here in Atlanta, and look forward to hearing from you again tomorrow. Proud to be associated with you.
You bet, Rob. Thanks.
You bet. All right, we're joined now by a special guest, and I met Kimberly Bowden yesterday. She is the CEO of the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, and I think this is my 10th or 11th trip to the Hall of Fame in the last few years. I absolutely love it. And I told you, Kimberly, and I want to say, first of all, I know you're busy, really busy, but thanks for taking time out of your Wednesday morning to join us on the show here. Jimmy Hodge and Frank Duffy and me and all of our listeners. I told you yesterday, and I really believe it. You know, everybody wants to take their kids to Disney World or Six Flags, and those are great destinations. Before you do it, and at some point in your life before you die, you will go to the Atlanta airport, go to the College Football Hall of Fame. And I go back to a story when Gary Stokan told us, he and Mal Moore, former athletic director at Alabama, famous for being sent to Miami and being told, don't come back without him, talking about Nick Saban. And he went up to South Bend to the College Football Hall of Fame, looked around. And I know when I lived, I live in Memphis, but I remember back in the mid and late 80s, Memphis tried really hard to get the College Hall of Fame, but they went to South Bend. Mal Moore said, you know, Gary, I've been all over this museum, and there's not one exhibit in here about Coach Bryant. And next thing you know, you go to Dallas, you have the football foundation, and everybody meets, and you get people like the Cathy family here in Atlanta with Chick-fil-A involved, and the Hall of Fame moved here. And my first visit was July 29th of 2015. I brought my son Wilson here, and it was just couldn't have been at a better time in his life and my life. This place is for a football fan like trying to take a drink of water from a fire hydrant. But tell us about it and the way you are hosting SEC Media Days. It is absolutely a logistical masterpiece. Rembrandt, Picasso, Monet would be proud. This is outstanding. But let's talk some college football.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And I have to give, a tremendous amount of credit to the SEC for the logistics. We hosted SEC Media Days in 2018, and the opportunity to host them again has just been fantastic. And we made some tweaks. We brought Radio Row from the Omni over in-house so that everybody could be together. And I think that has probably been, a game changer as well for Media Days and making this one even extra special.
Yeah. Tell us about your background, where you grew up, and your love of college football obviously must have started. If you grew up in the South, I'm sure it started at birth.
It sure did. I grew up in Central Florida. So I grew up a Gator fan, and I started, I started college at the University of Florida, and then had an opportunity to transfer to Central Florida and working for Disney. And so I finished out my degree there. So hospitality and sports have always been a love. And I think the Hall of Fame is something that lets me, kind of be a part of both.
And this is something that Frank Duffy, Frank's here in Atlanta. You've probably heard of Duffy Realty and Frank and Rhonda Duffy. And Frank, get involved in here. But you made a great point. Every time you go to the College Football Hall of Fame, and this is something, and I watched this when Auburn built an interactive sports museum they opened several years ago. They didn't want it to be a bunch of old glass cases with, aging yellowed press clippings of trophies and different memorabilia. It's interactive. It's the Jonathan Bell Loveless Hall of Honor. And he was a World War I veteran who was a manager on the Auburn football team, who later went on to found Investment Company of America, which is based out in California. They handle over $1 trillion in assets. And it was nice to have someone like that help you with a gift to get that museum started. But that seems to be the order of the day. But Frank, you nailed it. Every time you go to the College Hall of Fame in Atlanta, it's like waking up every morning in the South this time of year. You never know if it's going to be rain or hot or whatever, but the sun will always shine on the Hall of Fame.
Well, I had the great honor and privilege to be one of the sponsors of the Touchdown Club of Atlanta, which has had many events down the College Football Hall of Fame. So I've probably been able to be, at the Hall over a dozen times. And what really strikes me is, even though those events are incredibly well put on by the Hall, just a Tuesday afternoon to be able to go with several hours to spend and to go look at the interactive exhibits. I think that's one of the best things that the Hall of Fame, making its move from South Bend here to what I think is its natural home in the Deep South in Atlanta. I think it was that interactive exhibits that have the ability to change and to constantly be updated. So if you go to the Hall of Fame, this season, you can still go next season and see something you didn't see before. And I think that's the power of what you guys have been able to do at the Hall of Fame. And I think that's what has kept it so fresh for a lot of people, especially a lot of locals, which do come down to the Hall quite a bit.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. And I think it's really important for us to have kind of that blend of history and historical artifacts with the interactive elements that really immerse you into all that's great in the game. And the interactive pieces allow us to add content, after every season. If you go to rivalries and look at the matchup between, I hate to say it, Florida and Georgia, it is current through last season. And so we keep everything, as fresh as we can. And then we're constantly looking to bring in new exhibits that, represent the game, that are engaging and fun. And, obviously looking for sponsors to help support that initiative as well. So, but thank you for the compliment, because it's a really important part of our mission.
Well deserved.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a win-win for the city of Atlanta. I mean, it's staying at the Omni, and it's all connect. I think the cool thing is how it's so easy to get around. I mean, I quit wearing dress shoes a while back. I mean, it's either running shoes or hiking boots, some Vast, because you're going to be moving around. But everywhere you go, I got to tell you something. Your staff, the morale. You got one young man, Ethan Warrior. He's related to a football player you probably heard of, folks, from Fairburn, Georgia, Creekside, Nigel Warrior. Kid went to Macaulay. He's one of your staff members there. And every day I'm there, I'm always talking to him. He wants to get into sports media business and all. But they take pride in what they do. And that's the thing about Atlanta is I've got, a daughter here. My niece lives in Brookhaven. I'm over here a lot, but it's a big city, but you still get that down home, deep South, personal touch. And that's, it was Mark Peterson we met on the Sports Council. That you were up there Monday at that reception they had. But
yes,
y'all are great at getting out in front of huge crowds, people from all different backgrounds, different schools, not just the Southern schools, but all over the country. But they love college football. So again, folks, do yourself a favor and come here. It'll renew your faith in college football. Jimmy?
Yeah, since the hall has been moved to Atlanta, it was just common sense. I mean, because of Atlanta's location, it's just a crossroads for anybody coming from the Midwest to Florida, and then vice versa. You can hit it on the way back, and then even if you're going east and west from the Carolinas, maybe to Texas. I mean, it was just almost inevitable that it would be successful. But I just wanted to get an idea, first of all, since it has been the success we expected, people tend to forget kind of how long the Hall has been in Atlanta. When was that move executed? And then how many visitors are you getting a year? And I think a lot of our listeners would like to know, that would like to go, but some of those people aren't crazy about crowds. What are the times of year that maybe those fans could go that really want to see the exhibits but don't want to be overwhelmed by big crowds?
Well, great question. So we will celebrate our 8th birthday in Atlanta in August. So right around the corner, August 23rd. And, as far as, the right time to visit, we have 95,000 square feet. And that's one of the best things about the facilities. Even when, it feels like, we may have 1,000 people in the building, you don't feel like you're on top of each other. We've got, plenty of space to move around. It's very open. But, we're open 6 days a week from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so, really, kind of first thing in the morning or kind of as the day is ending are the times, probably the shoulder hours when, it would be the least crowded for folks that wanted to come through and really kind of have the place to themselves.
Kimberly, here's a question from one of our listeners, John Paul Jones in Waverly, Alabama. Has the College Football Hall of Fame done anything special for what he considers the greatest SEC finish / college football finish in history, the kick six? That's a good question. I'm an Auburn grad in the interest of full disclosure, but that was not my question.
You didn't see that? Come on.
John Paul Jones must be pretty smart.
We actually do. We have one of our interactive exhibits is called the play, and it's you sit down and we have some of these most iconic plays and finishes in college football history, and we will play for you the original audio call, and then you have the opportunity. We'll give you the script and you can call the play as it happens on video in front of you. And the kick six is definitely one of those, and it is a very popular one. Obviously, Doug Flutie, Hail Mary.
Yeah.
We have Lindsey Scott, Sugar Fall from the Sky.
Oh,
so
God.
A lot of really great calls, but yes, the kick six is there.
All right, I got to ask you this. You're a Gator. We're on GatorBaitMedia.com with Franz Beard and Buddy Martin. We had Ben Troop on the show Monday morning, another former Florida Gator, Gator for life, GFL. I got to ask you this. Your greatest finish as a Gator fan in your life? Give me maybe your top 2 or 3.
That's really tough. To me, it's actually the national championship season in 2009. And when I say because of the finish, because of the loss and Tebow and the commitment, and nobody's ever going to work harder, try harder, so that may not be, a last minute finish in a game, but talk about taking something and then finishing it strong. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll never, that was the Ole Miss game in 2008. And I remember I was in Memphis. I was over at a one of those country county fair things outdoors in the fall. And the Ole Miss people were just going crazy. And Tebow after that game. And, Kimberly, I believe, and I think, Tim Tebow is a very emotional, very passionate player. And
you're right, 2008.
Yeah,
sorry.
It was 2008.
The game was in 2009. But
yeah. Championship was in 2009.
But you remember, what I remember is, and then in 2009, the SEC championship game the next year when Alabama won. But he was just emotional on the sidelines. That's what we love about college football. And when you go to the College Hall of Fame, one of the cool things I think too is you got the big long fur coats from the Yale Harvard the game.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
It's really
raccoon
cool.
coat. Yeah.
Y'all capture the passion of college football. When you walk through there, I mean, think about the runaway mine train at Six Flags. Just, just all, and it's when you leave the College Hall of Fame, you're like, I want to go back again and again and again and again and again. You can't, too much is never enough of this place.
Well, I agree. I could talk about it all day, and I still find things when I walk around, that are just hidden gems of artifacts or little stories. We have LeBron James's recruiting form, kind of hidden in one of the interactive exhibits. He was, recruited to play college football as well. And he says Bobby Bowden was his favorite coach.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, he was an outstanding wide receiver. As a matter of fact, he and Allen Iverson, both in high school, were the high school football and basketball players of the year in Virginia and Ohio, respectively, And so it's really interesting that you can have those types of recruiting letters, that extend to the football side, because there's so much information out there that so many people don't know. And when you can put it to light, it just really increases interest, in your exhibits and so forth. And do you guys have any new ideas that are kind of in the maybe a preparation stage that you're looking maybe to add in the future? I guess I'm sure with expansion, there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're going to be thinking about. But in this day and age of the college football playoff, which was born really at the time you guys moved to Atlanta, how has that affected your presentation of the schools? Because it could be a little challenging, because a lot of the same teams have been in the playoff every year.
The graphics guy is very busy.
Or not, because we could just reuse them.
Yeah.
No, we are constantly looking for what's next, and we have really three opportunities to curate something new. And the first is our special exhibit, which right now it rotates about 4 times a year. And just the previous exhibit that was in there was called Game Changers, and really focused on the last 50 years of college football. So it had conference realignments. It talked about, the 1980s, the Supreme Court case that gave the universities and conferences back the broadcast rights, freshman eligibility after, the Marshall plane crash. And so really focused on really the amazing things that had happened in the last 50 years to kind of get us to where we are today. We rotated that, and it's now a tribute to the evolution of the SEC. Kind of makes sense for where we are today.
Yeah.
And, focused on, where it started in 1933 and ultimately to where it's going, and, looking forward to Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference. So that's a space where we can really tell unique and kind of timely stories as they come about. The next exhibit that'll go in, and we always do it at the end of the years, is a celebration of that year's College Football Hall of Fame inductees. The second thing we're able to do is we have, cases that we can move and kind of curate around the building. So we always, whether it's Women's History Month, Black History Month, SEC Media Days, and we, want to put some extra artifacts out. We only have about 15% of our, archive on display. So the opportunity to go dig in the archive and find things that are timely and relevant to an event going on in Atlanta, or, something going on, more nationally is an incredible opportunity. And then lastly, we're always looking for kind of what's next on the interactive side. Like, what is going to be something that represents, something really great and fun in the game, that's authentic, but yet is something that will be engaging for fans. And we just completed an overhaul of our ESPN College Game Day desk. So that we added in a bunch of augmented reality elements and things that are going to surprise the fans once they see the replay that they don't see when they're actually in the experience. And so always looking for what's next technology-wise as well.
If you ever come up with an interactive exhibit where you can tie into the officials replay booth in Birmingham during the LSU Alabama week, I want to donate my services to be in that interactive.
You'll be our first guinea pig. Is that what?
That's right. If there's any way that we can tie into that booth, I'm in.
Kimberly.
Frank didn't have any complaints about the 2019 officiating.
No, they did a fine job.
Why, none at all, sir.
I'm an LSU guy.
I will tell you though, we are trying to figure out how to come up with an exhibit that does get you into that kind of beyond the call opportunity, whether it's, we're giving you a scenario, a real life scenario, and letting you make the call and then seeing how you would call it and then kind of coming back behind you and showing ultimately how it was called on the field. And then kind of going into a little bit more explanation into that. So that is something that is definitely on our radar that I think could be really fun for fans.
I'll look forward to seeing the Patrick Peterson 2009 Bryant Denny interception.
Yeah, and the Moss catch at the 1 yard line. That was.
Hey, Kimberly, I got to ask you this. We were introduced to a really neat guy, Norman Jetmanson, and David Cruz over in Birmingham. Norman, they produced a documentary. It took about 6 years. Sewanee, 1899, Unrivaled, about the 1899 Sewanee team that, out of purely budgetary reasons, scheduled that road trip, 5 games in 6 days. Texas, Texas A&M, Tulane, LSU, and Ole Miss in Memphis. 5 games in 6 days, and on the 7th day, they rested. That season, 327 points for, only 10 against. Closest game was in Montgomery, and it was called due to darkness. They beat Auburn 11-10. And there's a painting that's in the documentary that they show. Guns being drawn, fist fights, riots. John Heisman was the Auburn coach. Again, they beat Auburn 11-10, but it's an incredible documentary. I have a copy of it, and I'll be back down at the Hall of Fame downstairs here shortly. I'll give it to you, but it's incredible to see it because it'll renew your faith in college football. And I will also say,
except for maybe the guns drawn and the fighting.
No. It
sounds like an Iron Bowl.
Yeah, well, it was, but
it'll totally restore my faith in humanity.
Well, what he was saying was just they were just pointing out in the movie that the fans in the crowd were so angry, the Auburn and the Sewanee fans, and they called it for darkness. There were no lights on the field in Montgomery, but it's really cool about the love of the laundry in college. And also, Norman invited me as a guest, the Monday Morning Birmingham Quarterback Club in Atlanta, back the first Monday in May, the Nick Saban Legacy Award. And I got to go and be there. And the award was given posthumously to the late, great Grambling football coach, the legend, who I grew up watching the Eddie Robinson show on Sunday mornings on TV in Memphis. Eddie Robinson's family, his children and grandchildren were there. We got to visit with them. And Steve Melnick, Gator, introduced Steve Spurrier. He won the award. Archie Manning was there. Lauren Sisler, who's on the show with us frequently from AL.com and ESPN, and Coach Rick Neuheisel, also on the show with us a lot, were there to host this. Just an incredible event. So I got to ask you about, if you've seen the Sewanee documentary, Tony Barnhart helped a lot in that. And also, it's been so busy this week, I haven't been able to take a tour. I'm going to try and do it today. But what Eddie Robinson has meant and will continue to mean to college football, his legacy.
Without question, and you mentioned his family. We had his great grandson who worked with us for about 3 years, and just an incredible family. And during Black History Month in the years, obviously with COVID recently have blurred. It's either 2019 or 2020. We celebrated his 100th birthday with the family and a panel, and that was a really special event that we were able to hold here. But I think you were about to say to our new HBCU exhibit, and that is something that that we are very proud to tell is the impact that HBCUs have had, not only in college football, but in just the communities. And so we opened our Celebrating HBCUs exhibit in June of 2021. And yes, obviously Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year Award, the Walter Payton Award, all, the incredible men that came out of HBCUs, and 13 of which are Hall of Famers. And so we also are able to host the Black College Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony here every year, which is an incredibly special event. So it's hard to, you can't overstate the impact that not only Coach Robinson, but HBCUs have had on the game and the community.
And look, one other thing, and I applaud you because college football pulls everybody together. I mean, there ain't nothing like it. in the world. And I'm going to ask you this. We love radio. As an Auburn fan in 1993, the Tigers were on probation that year, went 11-0. 11-0, Jim Fife said. The best team on radio, okay? Now, I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
Have y'all ever thought about doing an exhibit called, and I know you have it right now, it's Radio Row, but Radio Row, just a bunch of old radios kind of showing the evolution of college football fans. My dad's 94. He grew up before TV was around. I mean, but bottom line, that I think that'd be a cool exhibit just to show fans around the radio listening to Larry Munson. My God, a freshman, those thighs, run, Lindsey, run, sugar falling from the sky. Quickly, Lauren, quickly. Well, Larry, Georgia's just having a hell of a time against this Gator offensive line. Quickly, Lauren, that's enough. 81 seconds to go. Dogs in a fight for life. I gave up. You did too, but the Dogs came back and won. Man, think about all those dog people up there on Jekyll Island and St. Simon's with those condos. Man, is some property going to be destroyed tonight? I think it'd be the coolest exhibit, Kimberly, just old radio. Because I'm an AM radio junkie, AM White's radio log. I got that from my dad as a kid. And I love to listen to football games at night, just the old, and Mike Keith in that SEC documentary on SEC Network, More Than a Voice, he said, as the broadcaster of the Tennessee Titans, and he's from the John Ward, in just a few seconds on the banks of the Tennessee River, this crowd of some 100,000 plus will rise to their feet. At that time, the Pride of the Southland Band will come out and form a giant T, and the volunteers will come running onto the field. And here it is. No matter where you are, it's football time in Tennessee. I mean, I get so fired up about this stuff, Kimberly. I've been drinking coffee. I've been down in the basement. I'm like Chris Farley on that motivational. I've been down in the basement for 3 or 4 hours drinking coffee. But I think that's what I love about college football is the hope. One player can give a program, a university, a state, a fan base hope. What does Tim Tebow, what does Steve Spurrier, what did Danny Warfel mean to the Gator Nation? Translate that to every fan base in the country. That's why we got to get this right on the playoff, on expansion, and everything. I love sports. They give people hope. They teach you the lessons of life, and you cannot put a value on what it means. And you see these Alabama fans out there or Georgia fans, whatever fan base there are, they just want to be near the coach. But a Radio Row exhibit, how cool would that be?
I wondered if you were going to come all the way back around to the Radio Row exhibit.
I got a little. I've had 3 cups of coffee. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the iconic call.
We went to calls, to hope, to Bama fans, and now we're back to Radio Row exhibit.
Sorry.
Actually, that is something that we have talked about. Is kind of the evolution of the broadcast. And, and I think that our historian is pretty passionate about that. So it wouldn't surprise me, especially now it's kind of the streaming and those, over the top and all the other different ways you can consume live sports. So it's definitely something to revisit and integrate, we already have the iconic, the handful of iconic call to play plays that are all radio plays. So yeah, let's, definitely keep that one at the top of the list.
Yeah, just be something cool. Just Mick Hubert. Oh my, Doring's got a touchdown. I mean, God, it just calls.
And I know you're speaking radio, and I think radio obviously would have to remain a huge part of it. But then you've got Keith Jackson, and there's just so much you could bring into kind of consuming the live sport of college football that we love and how that's evolved.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah. The evolution is the key. I think you're right. And the Hall of Fame, you are storytellers. That's what you are, and that's what the media did, radio, and also print media. Going back to the days of Grantland Rice and Furman Bisher. It's just telling that story, and the Hall of Fame is the theater of the story of college football.
Yes, it really is. And we'd love to be the keeper of those stories, and then obviously have the privilege to share them. So,
well, and you think about college football as we go. What about seminars too? Just the educational part. Our theme on our show thanks to Maury Gaston, John Hearn, and Robert Durham, is history, tradition, and heroes. That's what makes the game so special. You're not going to have a championship in every season, no matter what the program is. As great as things are for Alabama and Georgia, stuff goes in cycles, but it's the tradition. I think it was Haywood Harris, former sports information director at Tennessee. Bob Kessling, the voice of the Tennessee Vols, comes on our show a good bit, and he said, Haywood Harris told him one time, he said, Bob, tradition never graduates. I mean, that right there, I think, encapsulates all that we love about college football, Kimberly.
Without question, people, passion, traditions. That's what we work to preserve. And I love that. It never graduates. It is there for generation after generation after generation. That's very cool.
Yeah. So anyway, I know you got to get going the days ahead. What can people do right now? Obviously, SEC Media Days today and tomorrow. But what can they do to get involved, to be a member, to be on the email list or whatever of the College Football Hall of Fame, to make them aware of upcoming exhibits? But people all over the country, I mean, obviously, we're in the Southeast primarily, but with the web, people are everywhere. And then we go to 680thefan.com. We're on their podcast park. And I was out with Chuck Oliver last night, Southern Sports Today, the king of college football, and he's on right after we are. That synergy of college football, it's 12 months a year, 24/7. If you're a Gator,
every day is game day.
Yeah, I mean, it is. So how can people become a member of the College Hall of Fame? And I know you got a big day ahead, and also how can they contact you, the Hall of Fame or whatever, and just get involved? Because that's what we got to do, is get people signed up.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. And we are actually getting ready to launch a membership program. So I would just encourage everyone to keep checking back at cschall.com. That's our website. And you can also follow us on all the social media channels at CSB Hall. And, we are open 6 days a week and welcome, fans to come check us out, and then just to stay in touch and see what we have coming up next.
Well, it is worth the trip, and I'll be back downstairs in just a few minutes after this. But Kimberly, again, thank you for taking time out of your day and your crew. I hope everybody on there knows how much we appreciate them. You just can't even imagine, people, unless you are here, what this place looks like and how quickly y'all will get it back up to where people can come in to visit. But this is just an incredible venue. I wasn't at Woodstock, but this is the Woodstock of college football coverage. Thank you so much.
It is. It's the Disney World of college football. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. Let's do
this.
Let's
take care.
Thank you. You do too, Kimberly, so much. That is Kimberly Bowden, CEO of the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. I get a little fired up talking about this Radio Row. And, again, you just think about, Jimmy, you're an AM radio junkie. Frank, you are. We all grew up with it. But even for young kids today, turn off the TV and let them listen to some games on the radio with no TV, and let your mind just go places that you didn't think it could go, but you'll imagine. And I think I want to get Mike Keith on Sidelines, the voice of the Tennessee Titans, longtime member of the Vol Network, part of that John Ward tree. Bob Kessling, now the voice of the Vols. Mike Keith, Brett Hubbs. So many great voices have come from there. But Mike Keith says, I still do it today. And I know people probably are like, what's he doing? But I say, go from, volume from your left to your right, from your right to your left, up and down the volume. They're painting a picture. If you could have sat next to Monet or Van Gogh or Rembrandt when he was doing a painting, wouldn't that have been cool? And watching it just come to life. That's what radio does. So I'm hoping they do that radio exhibit, and you can have a life-sized, figure of Larry Munson over there with a short sleeve shirt and a tie and just those glasses and that look and that worrisome look on his face, and Lauren on the sidelines. Quickly, Lauren, quickly. All right, let's take a break quickly, and we'll be right back for the final segment on Sidelines on this Wednesday morning, July 20th. Happy birthday, Uncle Boyd. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4 City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Brown. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Brown back here with you on this final segment here on Sidelines on a Wednesday morning, July 20th. Got a lot more to go. Kimberly Bowden, CEO of the College Football Hall of Fame. That was a great segment with her. Learned a lot. I hope they do the Radio Row exhibit. That will be a lot of fun. And Jimmy and Frank, you think about this, college football, the playoff, expanding the playoff. And where are we going from? Where are we going from here? There's no telling where we're going. But I know one thing. Every fan base thinks they have the best program and the best tradition of all. If anything about the College Football Hall of Fame, it's the fact that it's constantly updated. And 153 years after we started college football, November 6th, 1869, Rutgers 6, Princeton 4, in East Rutherford, New Jersey. They played in East Rutherford, Piscataway, or Princeton. But it was Princeton and Rutgers. The game was played at Rutgers. And 153 years later, Rutgers is kind of on the back page trying to rebuild their football program. But great football programs are like bonfires the next morning. You go blow on the coals, put some kindling on there, some bigger and bigger pieces of wood, and before you know it, that flame's roaring again. That's what's great about college football. You bring in that quarterback, that running back, that wide receiver, and they give a fan base hope. So what do y'all hope for out of this upcoming college football season the most? That we make somehow a commitment, and we're going to have Bill Hancock, the director of the college football playoff. He'll be a guest on Sidelines tomorrow morning. What are some questions? Hey, Mr. Hancock, college football needs to be important north, south, east, west, and everywhere in between. What can we do to maintain the interest and build and get more and more kids playing football with all the negative, attacks against football? Don't forget people like Dana Marquez, helmetfitting.com, and trainers and doctors around the country are working around the clock to make safer helmets, better equipment, and everything. What can we do to keep growing this game, college football, the greatest game of all time? Because no matter where you are, when your team runs out on the football field, it's not just football time in Tennessee, it's football time everywhere. What do we got to do? Somebody just sighed and moaned. Hey, I don't know who that was, but
my question to him is, what do you feel the gains and the losses would be by expanding the playoffs? I mean, let's use an old-fashioned accounting T-square. There are going to be positives by doing it and negatives by doing it, and then you can see whether it's worth it. And Rob, Jimmy, by expanding that playoff, there's going to be more dollars that are coming in. It's coming. It's got to come. And the interest and the revenue that it's going to bring in is going to be massive.
Well, no question. And I know, we ask this question a lot, Jimmy, but college football in the South, there's just nothing like the passion that it evokes from the fans of the schools, whether you're a graduate or just, you never went to a class on that campus. There's just nothing like it. But we got to make it interesting in November. That's something Reese Davis is right about. That in November, how are we going to keep fans in the deep South interested in what's going on in what's left of the Pac-12. It may be, as Shoney calls it, the six-pack in a year or two. I mean, they're in trouble. They got to get this right. But Jimmy, how do we keep it interesting for people that live in the Bronx? Or will college football ever matter in Boston, in Chicago? What can we do to get the game, to grow the game? Because if you're not growing, you're dying, and that ain't a good option to consider.
Well, I think the sport's in a great place because the areas where it's strong, I mean, it's absolutely dominant. And it's just in those major markets, pro sports are so entrenched that I'm just not really sure, to be honest about it, because all of the media is focused on the pro sports teams. And it's just kind of the way it is. And I think a big reason for the popularity in the Sun Belt is because professional sports didn't become reality until 1966, when the Braves moved to Atlanta and the Falcons were born as an expansion team. So the only thing I can think of is if some of the local schools really became competitive on the national level. I mean, like Boston College now in Chicago. If Notre Dame's having a big year, yeah, you'll get some coverage, but just not that much. I just think that the TV networks are doing the heavy lifting here, because the ESPN family of networks, Fox is really getting involved with, the Big Ten, and they do a great job of exposing the sport. So anybody that wants to see it is able to see it. But as far as just, the in-person experience in those major cities, it's just always going to be a tough slog there.
And I feel sorry for them because you're right. In the Northeast, Philadelphia, Boston, New York, but somewhat Chicago. They do have Northwestern. They have Notre Dame football. But those Northeast cities, I feel sorry for them. Their big game is the pro game, and they're passionate about it. I mean, Giant Stadium, the old vet, up to in Foxborough. But man, they just don't get it. They don't get it like we do down here. And even the Big Ten country, there's such a importance that's put on college football that I don't think you'll really ever get those big northeastern cities. And so be it. But I think Jimmy's right. I think the health of college football has never been better. The interest is off the chart. I mean, look at, like we were talking about with SEC Media Days right now. It's incredible. Got this, incredible product that is being consumed on a daily basis. Just like we said before, every day is game day, right? I mean, that's the logo and the slogan for the College Football Hall of Fame. It's the slogan for all of us that love college football. And if you do go to that expansion to put more teams in, I'll never forget, Rob, in 2007, I'll never forget coming back from the SEC championship game when when we beat Tennessee, and I had to hurry up to get home. And at like 1:30 in the morning, I'm watching the Boise State game because how bad they won that game was going to be directly related to how many, quality points I got for getting into the BCS. But here's the thing: there was only LSU and Georgia fans probably up watching that. If you have an enhanced college football playoff, say to 12 teams, you're going to have markets up watching that last game coming in, from out west, because everything hinges on it. So, I think expansion is going to be inevitable. You're seeing with the playoff, you're seeing that with the expansion of the conferences. But to Jimmy's point, college football has never, in my opinion, been healthier. This is the salad days of our sport.
Yeah, and I'm with what Buddy Martin and Franz Beard have both said the same thing. The game is as good as it's ever been. We just need to make sure, and we know those other things, NIL and the P word, the portal, they've got a lot of the headlines. But you know what? The line of demarcation was drawn this week. We've been talking college football depth chart, X's and O's. Yep. That's what really matters. And again, the free market is the will of the people. You know, you can let other people write your story if you want to. Gandhi said it best. I will not allow other people to walk through my mind with their dirty feet. Don't let other people tell you you're no good. That's why I always say it's darkest before dawn. Everybody loves to be negative and say, you know what being negative is? It's an easy way to live your life because you don't have to make any damn effort. Okay. You say we suck. Well, there you go. You don't
lose if you don't get up to the plate.
Look, it takes effort to get out of bed in the morning and be positive. You got to find excuses to win. I mean, I tell you what, I'm in sales and I've been in commission sales for 31 years. Let me tell you something. I don't care what TV commercials say, we're not commission salesmen. Let me tell you something. You get somebody with a big fat salary, government worker, whatever, for the most part, you think they're going to answer your phone call at 5:30 in the morning when they're in a duck blind in Gillette, Arkansas? By God, I will. And I'm not going to answer it and go, hello. I'm going to go, hey, man, how you doing? I've been expecting your call. What can I do to help you? I mean, that's what you got to have. You got to make effort and be positive. And that I love that book, Leadership Lessons of the Navy SEALs. And it talks about you got to find excuses to win. And you know what the word win is abbreviation for? Whatever is necessary. You can choose to go get caught up. Oh, we've ruined the game. Yeah, we got some problems right now. Go back to that other great quote. If Meet the Press and the Sunday morning political shows would have been around at the time the light bulb was invented, what would they have done? They would have lamented the death of the candle. Hey, now what happened? Candle makers started making scented candles. And believe me, after barbecue fest and stuff like that, you need them. I digress. But, the thing is, college football is all about the people. We are the free market. Okay? Fans will tell you what they'll tolerate. Athletic directors, universities, they think they don't control things. The fans do. The boosters do. And you can't expect one or two boosters at your school to carry the weight. You know what? I've heard it. I've talked to some super donors in my 31 years of private client wealth management, which I love doing in addition to this show 6 days a week. And that is this. I'll give, but I'm not doing it all alone. I want to see other people get involved. That's why universities will ask for, especially on these ginormous, as my kids call them, ginormous donations. Could we please put your name out there? Because it inspires other people to want to give, Jimmy and Frank. Like my friend Glenn Fredrickson, Oklahoma State graduate. He gave Oklahoma State University $5,000, and he said this at dinner one night after a few road sodas. He said, between T. Boone Pickens and I, we've given $350 million to Oklahoma State University. He gave $350 million. I gave $5,000. But between the two of us, $350 million. I like that.
I love that.
How about a lozenge, Paul?
And we're talking about expansion. Rob, the argument that people have made against expanding the playoff is that they think it would water down, individual games, the importance of every game in college football. The people that say that were not sitting in LSU's Tiger Stadium when Texas A&M came in to play LSU when we were at 5 and 6 going into that game. They did not come in and sit and watch that game when there was nothing on the line for both of our schools, and it was a bloodbath, and it was won on the last second. By now, Texas A&M's quarterback would do a touchdown pass, a perfectly thrown. If you were in that stadium, there was nothing watered down about that game. That argument that it dilutes the individual play every week is not the case, because that takes away from the true innate love of the game. It's the passion of when that ball kicks off and you're in those stands, or you're on that sideline, or you're coaching that team. It's never going to be that way. You're always going to have that importance of every game. So expanding it to say 8 teams or 12 teams, I don't think that's a problem. And I think that's the natural progression of where this thing's going. The money's gonna make it happen, but I think the interest of keeping all those fans involved. That's why Major League Baseball went to more teams. It was to keep more teams in the pennant race, during the season. So I don't think it's going to hurt at all. So that's where I think it's going. So that's the question that I would have is what are the positives, what are the negatives, and I'll guarantee you that old-fashioned accounting T-square, there's going to be a lot more on the positive side.
Every
Well,
game.
it's going to be a 12-team playoff. I mean,
Yeah,
that's going to be it's going to be non-negotiable.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't have expansion of conferences into 2 super conferences and only have a 4-team playoff. That's ludicrous.
Yeah.
It defeats the purpose of expansion, because you've got all these powerful brand names and you're going to have all but 4 sitting out of national championship tournament. It's ludicrous.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
Yeah.
The only reason it hasn't happened was because last year you had 3 conference commissioners that were showing their way of exhibiting a hissy fit about,
You're right.
You're right. Damn it,
one
you're right.
conference being able to have 2 of the biggest brand names in college athletics ask their conference if they could apply for admission.
Yeah.
But that is going to be, I think, still a problem in relations and relationships between these different conferences, because the commissioner position is now more powerful than it's ever been. And unfortunately, it appears that their dealings are becoming personal.
Well, you know what?
And that is one thing you have to be concerned about also.
Jimmy.
But like it or not, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to have to be able to get along, because they are the 2 conferences that have the most money, the most influence, and for the most part, the best team, certainly in the SEC's case.
Well, let me say this. Frank, you talked about the importance of every game, even with the playoff. Think about this. I remember talking to my dad March of 97. He was going to have open heart surgery. And the doctor was a friend of his, and he said, "Brown, there's no big deal. We do these all the time." He goes, "Yeah, you ain't the one about to be sawed on, He said, "You'll be fine."
This is my only.
Yeah, that's right. He goes, "We got this." But that's the thing about it. Every doctor that I've ever known, and I have so much respect for them. Yeah, you can say what you want, and they're underpaid for what they do, but they approach and their surgical team every single surgery with the same level of importance and and priority. That's every game. Coach Dye, that time someone asked him about, is it a big game? He goes, and same thing you said yesterday, what Gene Stallings said. I think they probably learned that from Paul W. Bryant, but he said, he goes, you think that, he goes, big game. He goes, try losing any game down here at Auburn. He goes, they come after you. they ain't playing around. That's what I love about college football, is that it matters. And, you got people, I remember Keith Jackson talking one time. Will there ever be, we talk about Burns and Allen, and we talk about Starsky and Hutch. There's never been a broadcast team like Keith Jackson and Frank Broyles. I mean, Frank Broyles going, Lionel James is the best halfback I've ever seen. Watch him on this block, Keith. He'll take him out. He's only 5'7", 172 pounds. But Pat Dye said he's never seen a player tougher, pound for pound, than Lionel Little Train James, who, by the way, was from Albany, Georgia, Daugherty High School. And I remember in 1979, Auburn beat Mississippi State 14-3. I was down there and outside the locker room to get autographs, anything you could as a kid. And I see this guy in a leather jacket, and it's causing his back. He's having a slump over. I thought it was George Patton. He had so many medals on him. That was Lionel James there for his visit. And he was a track and field star. You know what he did? He was over. I went over to Sewell Hall after the deal, just hanging out. I was a kid. I grew up walking that campus. Lionel James is over there, and he's talking about, and he passed away recently, rest his soul. He was talking about math and stuff like that. And you think about Dontarius Thomas, by the way, out of Perry, Georgia, couldn't get to an Auburn workout when he was coming in his freshman year because he had to go to math camp. I mean, but Tommy Tuberville found that guy at 6'3", 188 pounds, a member of the 4x400 Georgia State Championship relay team in track and field. But you just think about all these great players, where they come from, and the stories. Every one of them is a story. Jimmy, Frank, it's been one of the coolest shows we've done. I had a lot of people complimenting and saying, and you're right, Frank, and several other people, Kimberly Bowden, the CEO of the College Football Hall of Fame, you know what? Send me the best. Well, we just talked with her, okay? Get your rear
Very
end,
sharp.
yeah, down
Very,
to the college
very
football.
impressive.
And Frank, I got to thank you on behalf of everybody for what Duffy Realty does for so many important causes. I know you're great sponsors of 680 Chuck and Chernoff and Southern Sports Today with Chuck and Dan. You know what? People like you and just people that invest, that sponsor these events with the College Hall of Fame. There's 20 people on the board of the College Hall of Fame. I met Mark Peterson the other night at the reception we had Monday night. Jimmy, he's a Nebraska guy. And I talked about, wow, growing up, it was a shocker if Nebraska wasn't ahead 70-3 in the fourth quarter. But after the game and the post-game press conference, Dr. Tom Osborne would be lamenting, well, I was concerned when we gave up the field goal there late. Now we're going to work on that. The coach just won 105-3. Yeah. Well, but we got things to work on. But you know what? That's why 3 of his last 4 years, he won the national championship. Bob Devaney, okay, there are 2 cradles of coaches. Miami of Ohio, Eric Parsegan, Woody Hayes, Jim Beckler. But you know what the other one is? The University of Wyoming, which is the home, by the way, of the High Altitude Performance Center at 7,300 feet. They train and they study high altitude performance for athletics. University of Wyoming, Bob Devaney, Fred Akers, Pat Dye. So many great coaches went there. And by the way, if you like hunting and fishing, I don't know how you ever left it. And Coach Dye used to say, when I was in North Carolina, they were talking about the Four Corners in July. I got out to Wyoming in July. They're talking about the rodeo. You get down here in Alabama, especially in the South, they're talking about college football every day. See, but I'll tell you one thing. Go play a football game at the University of Wyoming in that altitude. Ask Missouri how that worked out at the beginning of the season in 2019. Francis, one of our good friends of the show, Notre Dame grad, said, I'm predicting, I want them to win, but they're going to lose Missouri at Wyoming. And they got beat. There's good football all over the country, guys. And we celebrate every day.
Ask Ole Miss how it is to play out at Wyoming when you refuse to take advantage of the option in your contract to bring your conference officials there, because they didn't. And I think they got penalized about 220 yards in Laramie that day.
Well, hey, hello, Birmingham. Hello, Birmingham. Come in. Breaker went, how about you out there? No, look, you know what? Steve Shaw has been so kind to be on the show. We're going to get him back on, ask him to come back on here with us soon, the head of NCAA officials, to talk about this upcoming season. Again, any rules changes or things to be looking out for. But you're right. They missed that one. Been a great show, everybody. Carol Burnett's over there warming up with Harvey Korman and the world's oldest man, Mr. Torgerson, and Mrs. Wiggins. It's been a great show today, everybody. And got to say this, man, we'll be back tomorrow. I'm going downstairs to listen. Got a great one today. You got the Fighting Pittman, Sam Pittman of Arkansas, Kirby Smart, and Kentucky. It's just unbelievable today. Every day it just gets better and better. Too much of this stuff, folks. Too much is never enough. And don't,
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it is. But we will be back with y'all tomorrow. Again, tomorrow we got a great show lined up. Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net is going to be on with us. Gary Harris. We're also going to have Bill Hancock, Executive Director of the College Football Playoff. Got a lot of questions for him, and even more stuff, insight from the SEC Media Days. Go out and help somebody with the expectation of getting nothing in return. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us, and I absolutely mean that. Don't complain, people. We live in the greatest country in the world. Go out, again, help people out. Let them know they matter. Until then, have a great day, everybody, because no matter where you are, from Knoxville to Memphis and everywhere in between, here they come. It's football time in America on Sidelines.live. We're out of here.